Academia anime vs manga video breaking down season 7 episode 15 titled Butterfly Effect, sharing the same title as chapter 374. The episode begins with Spinner finally breaking through the entrance of the hospital, which Spinner's kaiju form with the red scales does seem to be a reference to Venom and Carnage, especially when his tongue hangs out of his mouth. Spinner, charging in with the other heteromorphs, remembers All For One telling him that Kurogiri was transferred to the research wing, and once he reaches Kurogiri, he needs to play a recording of either All For One or Shigaraki's voice, as Kurogiri's quirk will be what brings this war to an end, with the anime here adding in a shot of Kurogiri. All For One then tells him that he will become a hero for Shigaraki's sake. As they charge forward, the heteromorphs see all of the doctors and nurses protecting the passageway leading towards the inpatient ward. One of the doctors here being a clear reference to Yoshi from Super Mario, as his official name in My Hero Academia is Dr. Yoshida, and the scales on Spinner's body begins to fall off. The heteromorphs remembering Shoji's words and seeing the doctor, who looks awfully similar to Toad from Super Mario, taking care of a patient who looks like a regular human. They all stop in place and drop their weapons as they've come to realize that what they were doing was wrong and were going to harm innocent people, as they see there are some heteromorphs standing alongside normal looking humans with no hate in their hearts, willing to die in order to protect the lives of those who don't look like them. Spinner, still making his way to the research wing, says that he thought he'd never be anyone, but following Shigaraki, maybe he could really be a somebody. As he breaks through to where Kurogiri is being held, he states that he has all of his allies behind him. Spinner looks back and sees that no one is with him anymore, as he is once again all alone, just like how he was all those years ago. Down the hall, Spinner hears Present Mike telling him that Shoji got through to the others and Kurogiri isn't going to be their secret weapon. Spinner turns back to Kurogiri as they both call out to Shirakumo. Present Mike, using his quirk, completely breaks off all of the scale mail on Spinner's body and destroys the recording device. Spinner falls to the ground and says that without the recording device, Kurogiri won't wake up. Several minutes earlier, we switch over to Shoji, and Present Mike had just told Shoji and Koda that he was going after Spinner, and for the two of them to stay and do whatever it takes to keep the rest of the heteromorphs from getting into the hospital. A heteromorph comes from the side and tries to swing an axe at Shoji, but is stopped by the heteromorph who had already been inside the hospital. He begins saying that they might have used their anger in the wrong way, and the PLF member pinned down by Koda yells for them to not lose their nerve and to follow Spinner, as the whole system had turned a blind eye for too long and it was time to teach them a lesson, and they only need to think of the abuse they endured. The heteromorph says that he is thinking about it. He's been beaten for no reason and his blood boils thinking about it. He puts his hand on Shoji, saying that he was excited when he heard about the call to action, as they said staying silent would be siding with evil. Since the world turned its back on them, they had to turn the world upside down, but he just doesn't understand why the whole world, as he couldn't even bring himself to hurt the doctors who were just trying to protect the patients. The PLF member tells them to not think and thinks to himself about how Shoji has messed everything up, since the heteromorphs were radicalized enough by them to become a meat shield and bring about their supremacy. The heteromorph continues, wondering if he was wrong about all of this and should have just sat at home and kept quiet. Shoji, crying, says the feelings that made them rise up today were neither in vain or wrong. Those who've hurt them still need to be brought into the light instead of doing what the villains wanted them to do and not think. They never stopped thinking about all of it, making them shine bright in his eyes. The light they shine will spread, and with that light they will change those who hurt others until they are ashamed of their own cruelty. Here the anime doesn't adapt the light shining from the heteromorphs, which sucks because it really showed how Shoji did shine that light onto them to not use their anger in the wrong way. That same light that the PLF member in the last episode said was never shown onto them because of discrimination. This marking the end of the discrimination arc, which I will say I felt was handled very well in my opinion, in the way that we have a minority character holding his people accountable for their actions while also not invalidating their feelings, guiding them to use their anger in a way that lets them never forget what's been done but also allows their voices to be heard. Back in the hospital, Present Mike contemplates ending the life life of Shirakumo to prevent Spinner from taking him back. On the floor, Spinner's mind is going blank and can't do anything. With no one backing him up, he thinks about how all he wanted to do was to follow Shigaraki. He then notices the burned face hand that belonged to Shigaraki on the floor. As President Mike walks up to Shirakumo, he prepares to use his quirk on him to end his life, probably in a similar fashion to how Black Bolt killed Doctor Strange on Earth 838 in Multiverse of Madness. In his head, he tells Shirakumo about how he doesn't want him to take away Aizawa's fond memories, as he's already lost an eye and a leg, and if he's no longer Shirakumo, then it's best for him to fade away and just leave them the memories. He then remembers Shirakumo's face during the PLF War arc and hesitates ending his life, because there could be a chance that Shirakumo is still in there. Thanks to this hesitation, Spinner musters up the strength to grab the hand off the floor, putting it on Kurogiri's face, telling him to go save Shigaraki and the others. President Mike shouts Shirakumo's name using his quirk, but Kurogiri is now awake, only taking minimal damage from President Mike's attack. Kurogiri looks at President Mike and tells him that he is the protector of Shigaraki and engulfs President Mike in his warp gate. Finally, we go to the present and see a BCD news weather forecast from Washington State in the US. Here we learn from Meryl that the massive cumulonimbus cloud that appeared in Japan is growing at a rapid pace and will most likely ride east and affect the weather in North America. Turns out that convection currents caused by repeated heat spikes thanks to the Todoroki family have combined with a tropical cyclone in Japan to form an enormous inferno cumulonimbus cloud. She then begins to go off script and asks, can the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil really bring about a hurricane in Texas? This of course referencing the butterfly effect and how the tiniest of details can lead to massive changes like the inferno cloud, but as well as everything going on in the war, and of course all that's happened to lead to this war. She then begins her own butterfly effect by stating on live television that she firmly opposes the government and the world's decision to pander to All for One, as she whips out a sign saying no All for One on it in an anime only addition to the scene. Back in Kamino, Ida tells Shoto that he'll burn if he engages with Dabi, as he has already reached his limit using phosphor. Shoto says that they all have hit their limits, yet Dabi is the only one still standing. Even though they share the same blood as Endeavor, only Toya is able to keep going. This is because Endeavor had lit the same fire he has when it came to surpassing All Might, making Toya just as stubborn as he is when it comes to not giving up, overall making his will to live that much greater as he wants to make Endeavor suffer. Toya realizes that his body won't last if he were to stay and fight Shoto, and takes flight to Endeavor's location. Burnin, seeing this unfold, is confused on how Dabi's body isn't falling apart, as his body wasn't compatible with his fire quirk. Shoto tries to make Toya stay and fight, but Skeptic tells Toya that he will be able to travel to Endeavor's location as a warp gate opens in front of him. At UA, we see that Shigaraki's body is adapting from the ass whooping Deku gave All for One. In an added shot, we see All for One smiling as he says the experiences in one's youth determines a person's whole life, and above all else, he trusts people's emotions. A warp gate opens up behind Aizawa with President Mike and Kurogiri coming out of it. In an added shot showing Spinner, All for One says that the feeling Spinner has for his friends after leading such a dark life made Spinner play his part in awakening Kurogiri perfectly. Switching over to the Villa ruins, All for One continues as he reveals he planted a micro device in Shimura's hand, the very hand that Spinner placed on Kurogiri's face to wake him up, with the anime adding in a shot of the face hand. Two portals opens up behind Endeavor and Hawks, with Toya coming out of the first portal to confront his father, and Toga coming out of the second portal in the form of Twice to confront Hawks, the hero who killed Twice. All for One states that Twice's death created animosity in Toga's heart, and he tells Hawks to witness what it would have looked like if he hadn't prioritized getting rid of Twice back during the PLF War. In an added shot, more Twice clones begins coming out of the portal as Hawks yells out to end all of the Twice clones. We then go back in time again to several minutes earlier, this time seeing what happened on Okuto Island. Here the anime adds in a scene of a villain attacking Froppy. Toga appears behind Froppy, but Ochako jumps in front of Toga, deflecting her blade. Here the anime does remove the detail of two heroes also coming to aid Froppy, though they do end up showing up. Ochako catches on to Toga's trick of being able to conceal her presence, as it's basically just a type of misdirection. She realizes that it's really complex and subtle, meaning that there is a limit to how many people she can use it on at once. With a sensor type hero and a group of at least 4 who can back each other up would counter Toga's ability to conceal her presence. In an added scene, Toga conceals her presence with the waves, and the sensor type hero reveals that Toga had gone left. Ochako then chases after Toga. In an added scene, we see Gang Orca's sidekicks managing to hold the bleeding high-end Nomu in place. Gang Orca notices that the high-end doesn't have hyper regeneration. The anime adds in a shot of heroes having tied up a bunch of villains, with the hero's mission being to take down the high-ends and villains while they are on the island. Toga sees that with less villains around, the more likely she'll be captured. She contemplates on drinking Twice's blood, as she would be able to take back the numbers advantage, but the Sad Man's parade would be wasted on the island. She takes out a decoy blood vial as she decides to believe in Spinner waking up Kurogiri. Here, it's revealed that because of Twice dying and coming to terms with society, Toga fully embraced being a villain. Froppy gets baited by the vial, believing it to be the blood of All for One or Shigaraki's, and destroys the vial with her tongue. Toga then tells Froppy that the vial was a decoy filled with a chemical that attracts Nomu. The Nomu attacks Froppy, and Toga transforms into Froppy and drinks the vial containing Twice's blood. In the midst of creating Twice clones, a portal opens up with Kurogiri asking Toga what does she want to do. She responds by saying that she wants to annihilate all of the heroes, starting with Hawks, and tells Kurogiri to send her out there as her clones walk through the portal. Ochako yells out to Toga, telling her that they still haven't had their conversation about romance, and Toga regrettably says that she wishes they could have. Back to the present, Hawks realizes that Toga had some of Twice's blood, and he wonders how she even got it, as when he infiltrated the Liberation Army, he made sure to eliminate every sample and even got rid of the traces left after the First War. He comes to the conclusion that Dabi was the one behind Toga having Twice's blood. The anime adds a scene zooming out from the inside of the crazy amount of Twice clones as Toga unleashes Infinite Double's Sad Man's Death Parade, the name of Twice's ultimate move being changed from the manga, with it adding the word death. Since the Sad Man being Twice is now dead, it is now called Sad Man's Death Parade. The episode ends with Hawks in complete shock and an added shot of Dabi and Twice clones. Now this episode covers about 4 chapters, them being the rest of chapter 372, 373, 374, and the majority of chapter 375. This episode was great, definitely one that mainly sets up the next episode, but still a good one. Let me know your thoughts on the episode down below. With that said, if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to smash that like button, and if you are new to the Kurogiri channel, then be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on so that you don't miss any My Hero Academia Season 7 breakdowns. With that said, I'll see you all in the next one.